All right, we're getting controversial again. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Lauren. I am your resident intuitive baddie. And there are some opinions I want to talk about. I was thinking about somebody had commented a, a couple like a month or a couple months ago or a while ago asking if I was anti-vax during COVID. I had one video where I was talking about I think just I think I was talking about how in my own health journey how I've I'm more I'm more privy to a more natural approach. I don't remember if it was my video where I had talked about um my lupus or my video where I had talked about my my birth journey because or my pregnancy journey because I didn't really like how my doctor was pushing certain things. And something you should know about me, I don't really like hospitals. I There's a lot of things I don't believe in. I don't really I'm starting to see a lot when it comes to the pharmaceutical industry and just medication in general. I want to disclaim, I guess, that it's not that I don't believe in medicine. Of course, I believe that there there is modern medicine that does wonderful things. However, I have opinions about, I guess I'd say, I believe medicine it should be something that you shouldn't have to rely on. It's something that you should be able to take and then eventually stop taking. And I just yeah, I have an issue with it replacing certain natural remedies if the natural remedies work just as well or even better. Um, so yeah, this kind of stems from a tweet that I saw the other day, and it basically said something like, let's make this like, clear. I am not unvaccinated. I am not vaccinated. And basically, it was talking about how the way that that word had been positioned is in such a way where it made being vaccinated sound like the norm, like the baseline, rather than natural, like a, a natural, like, look at it, natural human status, which blew my mind. And I've been thinking about this tweet ever since just because it's so true. The fact that like, I hated that time just because yeah, it was so unpopular to be unvaccinated or to have that opinion about whether you should get vaccinations or not. And it's like it it became such a thing where it wasn't like people weren't seeing this as like this is a personal choice. It was like everybody's doing it, and if you are not doing it, you're wrong. And I find that that type of thinking is just so unhelpful and unfair. And I don't know, I just like I think when it comes to somebody's body, I think my body, my choice is should be applied to everything. And it just made me think about having opinions on certain things like that. There's a lot of major topics that surround that. And at the end of the day, I think that everyone's entitled to their opinion what you think is healthy or not. But at the end of the day, what somebody chooses to do with their body is up to them. And I think so long as that person is well informed about what it is that they're doing with their body, and that they are not just not just informed about and comfortable with what they think they're getting out of it, but they're well aware of any side effects or any repercussions that may come with it, and they so choose to continue to do it, and they're of age to do it. I think I also believe that people should have fully developed frontal lobes before they make any major medical changes to their bodies. Then who am I to tell somebody else what they should do with their body, with how they want to experience life? But I do have a problem when certain things are pushed and people are not informed enough, or there's just not enough information to go around, and the opinion of whether somebody should do that thing or not is driven by, I guess, more like compliance measures or cancel culture, that kind of stuff. um yeah, like I think about debates like abortion or like being transgender, right? It's like these are huge topics, and I can see both sides for both arguments. And like for myself, yeah, I have certain opinions on both, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing where at the end of the day, if the person making the choice is well informed about everything that comes with what they desire to do, then who am I to push my opinion on them, or um or yeah, like to decide for them. I think, and I just think that there is such the word that's coming to mind is mishandling, but misconception, I guess, a problem. I'm like, I'm like, what's the word I'm looking for? But I think a lot of people mistaken putting forth their opinion for getting people to think critically. And it's like you can inform somebody of the dangers of something that they want to do for their body, but at the end of the day, if you are presenting it in a way where they still feel as though they can take that information and then make an informed decision, rather than you are forcing them to choose a different opinion just based off of the information you're giving them, it makes a huge difference. So I'm gonna use, like, which one do I want to use? I could do the example for both, to be honest. But let's say with abortion, right? Like at the end of the day, if somebody doesn't want to go through 9 months of carrying a child for whatever reason it is, whether it's like, of course, I think the more acceptable one that people believe in is if it's a medical issue, or like you can't bring the baby to term. But it's just like, if somebody also doesn't want to, if they don't want to go through it because they don't feel they can give that child a good life, if they don't want to go through it because they're not ready, I don't think that that person should be shamed for that. But I do think that they should be well informed about the psychological repercussions after, and like going through that procedure, understanding that, like, I don't believe in this notion that it's just a clump of cells. Like, I do believe that once those that clump of cells starts to form, that there is a soul in there. And as somebody who has gone through pregnancy, um, I think most women can attest to this. Like, you can, when you start to feel those changes inside you, you're going to feel connected to that being, no matter how far in development it gets. And I know, and it's one of those things where I know it's a sensitive topic, but it's actually so much more common than you would think for people to get abortions or to have miscarriages. But the sentiment is that even if a baby doesn't reach full term, it doesn't matter what stage it gets to. Once that starts forming, that is a life. And I think that there is a lot of stigma and silence when it comes to whether you lose the baby naturally or whether you went in and stopped the process. And I think that that needs a lot more mental health aid than it's given, because I know so many people who have gone through that, like more people than you would think it. And that's why I again, that I mentioned that it's just more common than you would think. And the thing that I'm noticing as a commonality between all the people that I do know that have had to experience the loss of a child, whether it was by choice or by nature, is that there isn't so much ongoing mental health support. And it's such a huge thing because, like, the fact of the matter is once it starts forming in you, especially as the female, as the one that would have been carrying that child, just thinking about it on a quantum level, there's a timeline that occasionally you were going to be thinking about. And it's just, I can't imagine what it feels like to carry that and not be able to talk about it because of stigma. And that's again why I think it's so important to not, it's like, yes, you should be able to have that choice of what you want to do with your body, but it I don't believe in dismissing the child, that being, as a clump of cells just to help make yourself feel better. I- it's like you should be real with yourself about the whole situation. And it's like, if you can if you can understand why you're doing what you're doing and make peace with that, and then have support after the fact, after everything is said and done, and then get ongoing support for that. Because yeah, I know people who do think about how old that child would be years later, and just like thinking about what that life is like, and feeling guilt because they can't talk about it. And no, and that's a lot for somebody to carry. But yeah, that's just one example, um of like a really controversial topic that I think what I'm trying to say is that none of this stuff should be black and white, and people shouldn't be shamed for what they want to do with their bodies, as again, so long as they're well informed. And I think that when people do make a decision, that there should be more of a point in 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 caring, in aftercare, I want to say. Yeah. So I guess moving back to the whole vaccination thing, because that's where my issue was, where it's like, if I want to live a natural, holistic life, I feel that it shouldn't be, something else shouldn't be pushed on me. And at the end of the day, I also just had a problem with it, because it's like, if something is meant to work for me, I shouldn't need campaigning, convincing. I shouldn't need to be scared into it or feel any pressure or force. I'm a firm believer in flow and allowing people to feel out what they need and to listen to their intuition on what they need. So that period of time was just such a huge issue for me, because it's like, it was just so stigmatized for what I was choosing to choose to be natural. And going back to that tweet, it's just like, it's just so weird that the baseline isn't isn't being natural anymore, or maybe it just never was. It's, what does it say? Pharma intervention is the baseline, as opposed to being a natural, or doing things in a natural way. And you can also look at this in our food, like the way that naturally grown food is labeled as organic food, as opposed to genetically engineered food being labeled as that. Like, I had read a tweet that said, I want to be able to call the carrots that I grow carrots, and the carrots that are in the grocery store should be labeled something else. And it's like, when you put things into perspective like that, it's so true. It's like, why do we normalize, or why do we segregate something that is more natural and should be the one that's normalized, but we normalize what's chemically engineered and what looks better, I want to say. Because I feel like part of the reason why people don't get organic stuff, aside from the fact that it's more expensive, and that um, in retrospect, I think it doesn't last as long. um, it's one of those things that's just such a subtle manipulation of language. And it's just so crazy that it's crazy, but it's not crazy, that we've just been programmed to find certain things to be normal, or to have an opinion that certain things are right and wrong, when at the end of the day, nothing is really, or a lot of these things aren't black and white. There's something to gain from both sides, both perspectives. And it it makes me bring up the law of, or it makes, what comes to mind is the law of polarity, because the law of polarity states that everything has its opposites, but at the end of the day, they are the same thing, with on a sliding scale. The best example of this is with temperature, because there is no definite place where hot becomes cold. It just gradually shifts into the other. And when you think about opinions like that, it's just all. something I love about Buddhism is like they I was gonna say promote, that's not the word. But they teach that you should walk the middle line or be closer to the middle line. And I think that when we get too caught up in extreme opposites, extreme opinions, it just creates divide rather than, and we're in such a time where people aren't even willing to understand or hear somebody else's perspective and see why they think the way that they do. It's it like there's not much room for critical thinking and debate anymore. It's just like, this is my opinion, your opinion is different, therefore it's wrong, and I'm not actually listening to what you're trying to say about your opinion. I'm just looking for how to be right. And I just think that there are so many situations where there is no such thing as right or wrong. it's it's subjective, and I think we live in subjective worlds. The way that we sorry, the way that the way that we form opinions and the way that our perspectives go are all based on our experiences and what we know, what we allow ourselves to learn and obtain when it comes to our thoughts and our opinions. Is It's just so limited, and I think a lot of people are so used to having certain opinions given to them or basing what they think is right off of other people or what the majority thinks, rather than to gather enough information to actually form an opinion that makes sense to them. And I do think that everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I don't think I remember also in during like during COVID time um when it was almost made, I don't want to say illegal, but it was just like it was made out to be that certain certain people's opinions were harmful. When at the end of the day, if everybody's using critical thinking skills, nobody's opinion can really be harmful, because if you don't allow yourself to be swayed and just influenced by one opinion, and you're able to look at a bunch of different opinions, look at a bunch of different perspectives that are being stated and take what resonates for you, then how can any opinion or any influence ever really truly be harmful? It's what it implies is that people don't think for themselves, and therefore the opinion of somebody can easily sway a whole bunch of people, and that makes it their fault for having the opinion, rather than to make it the fault of the people who don't have critical thinking skills. Crazy. But yeah, I think there's just so much more that I could say on this topic, and I need more videos for this. So if you enjoy this content, I would love for you to let me know. I'd love for you to leave a comment, leave your opinion on certain things, and have a healthy debate. I think healthy debate is a lost art form, honestly. Like, I think, again, so many people are just so focused on being right rather than to really try to inform each other about different things. And it's just like having different perspective adds so much depth to the way that you think, and you can learn so much from each other. That's part of the reason why we're here, and that we're split into a bunch of different bodies, is so that we can all have our own experiences, all have our own opinions, all have our own perspectives, and reflect off of each other so that we can expand our mindset, growth mindset. It's just like growth mindset is not encouraged anymore. And especially with AI now in the mix, like it's even more than ever where people are not able to critically think anymore. So I encourage you to think critically and, yeah, to engage in more debate, but not in a way that's judgmental or that shuts down any opinions. Like, listen with open minds, listen with open ears, stand firm in what you believe in. And if you hear something that makes you question your beliefs rather than to feel uncomfortable about it, sit with that and allow yourself to have an opinion that is able to change, because that's the other thing, is that you might have an opinion today that you're not going to have in 10 years, or that you have a different outlook on in 10 years, and that's okay. I think it's okay to be able to change your opinion once you have more information, because, yeah, sometimes it's just that we're just so limited in the information that we have. Anyways, that being said, if you would like somebody to reflect your perspective on it, to talk about your thoughts, where your thoughts come from, why you think certain thoughts, and just to add perspective and depth to the things that you think, hit your girl up. Link in the description if you want to find me, and if you want to contact me to work one on one with me. Aside from that, I'd like to thank you so much for being here and for listening to me. And until next time, bye.